Today we have the Christmas tree gnome that we're going to be starting on. Everything you see here is in your kit. Everything we're using today will be provided for you. We have this little cone. It is already wrapped and ready to go. And you're going to have some clay. Start with that. You want it to be moist so you can feel it and see how I can move the clay. So if you can't do that, that means it's too dry. And go ahead and spray your clay and then put your plastic back over the top until it gets a little wet throughout. It doesn't take very long, but it's good to get it wet so that when it's too dry, you can't work with it. This piece is a little bigger than the last gnome we did. This one is going to take 2 pieces of clay that come in your kit. We do have to put those 2 together. So we're going to score and overlap them and roll it out. Add some water. It all comes together as one piece. We need to make this clay big enough for this pattern. This is the pattern that we're going to cut out. I like to put plastic on top of my clay just so it doesn't stick to my roller. I'm going to start in the middle and roll out. Now I need this to be fatter, so I'm going to roll it out this way also. Yeah, it's a perfect fit. I'm going to take a toothpick and just cut out all the way around it. Slit it and pull it right off, all the extra clay. We're going to keep this wet. And wrap it up. Now my piece, I have to know how thick I want it. So I take my popsicle stick and my tongue depressor and put it next to it, and I want it to be at least that thick. I'm going to check it all the way around. Make sure it's nice and solid. This piece needs to be pretty thick so that it can support the weight of the tree. I'm just going to roll it out a little bit more so it's thinner on the side. I'm going to take the pattern off and pick up your clay and center your piece right around the cone. The cone should come together for you. We're going to take it and do our scoring. Add some water and push it together. We're going to do what's called a blending seam. Pull it together and blend the 2 sides right together. I'm trying to make sure the paper doesn't get stuck in there. Let's pull it together. I'm going to leave the top open. You see that it's open? Leave that open and then just blend the rest of this. You can see how pliable my clay is. It's very just the right moisture so that I can manipulate it quite well. Okay, so it's sealed, but I want to smooth it out. So I'm going to take my tongue depressor and just smooth it out. It's sort of compressing the clay at the same time. I'm going to take the sponge from the kit and I'm just going to smooth out all the marks that I just put in it. It's like sandpaper. The wet sponge is like sandpaper. Smooths it all out. The next thing I'm going to do is create his nose and his beard. I'm going to put that, this is where my seam was, because it's open. I'm going to put his nose and his beard on this side, the opposite side. I have my extra clay. I'm just going to rip some off. I like to start with his nose. Get that centered, put where I like it. Just depends on how big it is. This guy has a pretty small nose. Maybe we'll go a little bigger this time. So I make a ball. Okay, I'm going to take the top and just squeeze it to somewhat of a point. I'm going to take my toothpick and put it right in there for his nostrils. See how I'm moving it around? It gets bigger and bigger. Same for the other side. Just going to smooth it out with my fingers and then take this wet sponge and clean it up. So I like the way it looks. Maybe take and pinch, give him a big ridge on his nose. I want the back to be flat. Here's my nose. You can play around with it and get some pretty interesting shapes. No two are going to be alike. And to attach this, we're going to score. Don't forget your scoring, it's very important. And then score the area where you want to put it on the cone. Now you have to think about making room for your tree and making room for your beard. I'm just going to press that on. I'm going to bring it down a little bit. I'm going to smooth it out. Kind of made it lopsided. I'll get it back in order here. And then I'm going to take my tongue depressor and pull some clay from the side of his nose and blend it right into the cone. I'm going to do that all the way around. Then I'm going to check that shape one more time. Make sure it's the way I want it. He's got kind of a pointed nose. So a couple of different types of noses. And then clean it up. He looks kind of like a witchy nose here. Next we're going to do his beard. You take some more extra clay. This we're going to roll out. I'm going to roll all the clay together and then flatten it out. Roll it. and decide on the shape that I need. How wide I want it to be, how big it needs to be. Make sure I have enough room. I can always cut it off later. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to curl his beard like you see here. Gives it a little more texture. I'm just going to come in and cut sections for his beard. And this is going to go right here. See how much room we have. And what we're going to do is twist these. I'm going to make sure that's nice and wet, and we're going to twist them like that. I don't know if you can see that. I'll do one over here. Just going to twist it. So I'm going to attach it and then twist them. A little bit of water. Scoring to put it on. I don't want this to fall off. Okay, go. We'll make a little indentation for his nose, so we can get it right up there under his nose, just like that. Okay, see how that is? I'm taking my finger. I'm going to do a blending seam right here to make sure it's staying on. Press down where I scored, and then I'm going to twist these onto and push them right onto the cone. I'm not attaching them down there, I'm just twisting them. And there's this little twisted beard. It gives it a little texture. You can also just take your clay and flatten it, roll it, and then just put some texture on it. So you can just go like this and put texture and not do the twisting, and it still has a nice effect. Make a little indentation for his nose, and then put it right on underneath it. Okay, so that's another option that's easier, but this is kind of fun, and I think it adds a lot of character to him. Once you have your beard on, you're going to take a brush and some water and just clean up the edges of your beard. Just clean up all the rough edges. Make sure that beard is attached. And there you go. That is the gnome part of your project. Next, we'll move on to the tree. I took the opportunity to clean up my work area so I can see where everything is again. I'm going to start with clay for the top for the tree and pull all that extra clay over. You'll have a lot of it. We're going to put it together and then roll it out. Gather all the pieces. I'm hitting it so the air bubbles will come out. All the air pockets. Now I'm going to roll it out, and when we roll out the tree portion, we do want it to be a little thinner than what the gnome body was. The gnome body is thick so it can support the nose, the beard, and the tree. So we're going to roll this out a little bit thinner, and we are going to use the stick to measure our thickness again. We just want it 2 sticks thick. It can be anywhere between 2 and 1 for this. Doesn't matter what the shape looks like for this. We're just getting the right thickness. Notice again how I'm starting towards the center, in the center, and then rolling out. Start in the center, roll out. I'm not going over the edge. So I don't go over the edge. I just go to the edge because I don't want that to be too thin. When you're rolling out, and you might see a couple of little bumps, and I'm not sure if you can see those, but I have a little air pocket right here. So like a dent that comes up. I just take my toothpick, poke it, and then roll over it again to get the air out. And now it's nice and flat. Okay, let's see how thick it is. See, it's a little bit less than 2. So this was 2 sticks thick, and this is a little bit less. So it's going to be a little thinner, and that's perfect. It's just where I want it. Just going to smooth it out a little more. And next thing I'm going to do is add some texture. I'm the kind of person that I like to find the shortest way to do things. I'm going to just put texture all over this, and then I'm going to use a cookie cutter to cut out some circles. These are all individual circles. So first the texture, and I'm just scratching the clay, very simple. And just keeping it all in the same direction. Overlapping some of them. I'm just going to do a portion, just to give you an idea. You don't have to watch me do all of it. I'm going to take the cutting tool. You'll get one of these in your kits, just a little cookie cutter. You come in and we're going to cut a bunch of circles, just like that. Just cut as many as you can out of the area that you put the texture on. You don't want to go too deep with your texture. You don't want to cut all the way through. You get a little zealous and cut all the way through, then you'll end up with one like this. You can see it's a little too cut up. You just push it back together. Okay, that should be enough to get me started, so I can show you what we're doing next. I'm going to take our guy. I like to start with the gnome's nose right here. Okay, it's right in the middle. It's the part you're going to be seeing, and we're going to put it over his nose. Okay, so I want to make sure my texture is all going in the right direction and decide how far over I want it to go on his nose. We're going to continue these around like this. Okay. So I'm going to start with my scoring. Very important, scoring. Score both parts. And then take some water. You can use your finger, you can use a sponge. And press that on. Very gently. Go all the way around so it's ready for me. Make sure it's going in the right direction. And I'm overlapping. I'm overlapping. I'm just going to keep going. As you're coming around to meet, you want to make sure you're all in the same plane you're going to meet. Just keep an eye on that. And you just keep cutting out more as you go along until you go all the way up to the top. And I'll show you how we get up there. Okay, when we get to where the two are meeting, you're going to do your scoring, just like before. But when you put this one on, you're going to slip it underneath the first one you put on and then put it back down so that you're overlapping all the way around. And then we're going to start our next layer up. You're going to overlap this and overlap it so that you have two pieces and then one right over the two. Two, one right in the middle. Make sure you're coming together. So if you need more, go ahead and take your extra clay, roll it back up, slam it, and roll it. Now, if it needs more water at this point, don't be afraid to either add it with your fingers or with your spray bottle. Check it this. Okay, we just have a couple more to do at the top. You can decide where to stop. I think we need to do one more row. So that's what we're going to do. So I don't know if any of you have heard of the little folk tale about gnomes and how when they turn 400, their time as a gnome is up and they become a tree. So this is kind of how I like to think of our guy here, that he is becoming a beautiful tree that will live on more. Our tree is going to light up and he's going to be a sight to behold. Just a couple more pieces here. I'm working on the front. I want to make sure that I've got the overlapping going on here. And then just check out how many more, maybe 2 more there, 1 to 2 more. So our gnome can be a proud tree. As I'm picking him up, I can feel how heavy he is. He's quite substantial. Last one. Right there, overlapping those. There we go. So the next thing we can do, you can see on this guy, he's got his branches kind of turned up. So we're just going to go and we're just going to lift up, starting at the bottom where we put them in first. And I'm just bringing my fingers underneath and see how easily they lift up. I'm going to do that all the way up the tree. Give them a little panache. We're just curling them up a little bit. You don't want to pull them off. You just want to give it a little personality. So we turn them all up and then take a look around and see if you've overdone some. You just check them out. There you go. He's cute. So you can also go and look at your texture and make sure you have, pretty even all the way around. You can go back and put some in. You can come in and clean up some of the edges you want with a brush. There's a brush in your kit. And just put a little bit of water. Just a little bit of water on there and you can kind of clean it up if you like to. If you need to. Just check them out. Might get some fingernails here and there. Just clean them up. All right. Before we start painting, we have one more thing that we need to do, and it's with a straw. We're going to put holes in so that we can put a light up inside of him and let the light shine through. So we're going to take the straw and put it all the way in, and then you'll pull some clay up. I don't know if you can see that in you can kind of see just a little bit of clay there. Okay. And I don't like to put a lot of lights in. You can just do one here and there. Pull it all, push it all the way in, pull it all the way out. And just kind of do it randomly throughout your tree. You don't want 2 next to each other. I'm putting it in the leaves so that you might not see them until the light's in there. Just keep going all the way around your tree randomly. I'm going to move this guy out of our way just so you can turn your plastic so you don't have to pick your piece up. Okay, just a few here and there. Put holes where you want to see light coming out. Make sure your branches are back where they were. And then you can leave the top pointed like this. I like to cut mine off because I like to put a star right in the top. Your kit will have a star that comes in it. So you just take this, and I like to cut it flat. Just like that. And then you have an area where you're going to put your star in, right there. Okay, there's our guy. The next thing we're going to do is get our colors out and paint the wet clay. We don't want it too wet. What I want you to do is go ahead and clean up your area, get your workspace set up, and let him dry for 15 minutes to a half hour, and then we're going to go ahead and paint him. Okay, you can see I've cleaned up my workspace because we are going to paint now. You will have these colors in your kit. We have a deep red color and green for our guy. This looks black, but it actually is this really beautiful dark green color. So it changes drastically through the chemical change in the kiln from the heat. Okay, so those are the basic colors that are going to change. Let's get started on our painting. You've let it sit for a couple minutes, so he's a little drier. And we're going to start with the nose and his robe. The first thing I want you to do is pick up your piece and make sure that the your comb can come out of the bottom. Okay, just make sure. We're going to leave it in there, but make sure it's not stuck. So after you paint, you can pull it out easily. Just check it. Don't want any mishaps later. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, I like to start with the lighter color, and I'm going to paint his nose. Just come in, and I'm just going to kind of dab this paint on. You can see I'm not brushing it down, and I'm doing that because the paint is going on wet clay, and we don't want to mess up any of the design on the clay, and we want the paint to be nice and thick. So get his nose. This is a big old nose here. All your colors are going to have at least 2 coats on them. If you can take the time and let it dry in between, you can put the 3. I recommend 2. Okay, that's the only thing on his face that needs this color. We're going to clean our brush off. I'm going to go in and do his white beard. I chose white. He's an old gnome. He's turned into a tree. Nice snow white beard. I'm just using my brush to get down in there. See how I just poke it in there? And see how I'm dabbing the paint. That's how I want you to put your first coat on. You can take your time and adjust anything that needs adjusting. His mustache come up as far as you want it. There's his beard. We're going to let those dry. I'm going to move on to the red color. Doing the same thing. I'm patting the paint on. I'm working from the bottom to the top, and again, I'm really just laying that paint on. I'm not brushing it hard, I'm just dabbing the paint on. Now for you, because you don't have to worry about somebody looking at you through the camera, you can take remember your workspace moves around, and you can just keep painting, and you don't have to stand on your head like me to paint them. Just get comfortable. Hunker down, relax while you paint. And I'm gently placing it on. I'm kind of dabbing it. Hope you can see that. And you just work your way around your piece. basically being quite generous with the paint. Okay. I'm going to work around this way, and then we're going to come back in and do the tree. Now, if you do get paint where you don't want it, you can always take a toothpick from your kit and you can just scrape it off. You just scrape it off and start over. Okay, that's the beauty of these paints. You have wet clay, you have wet paint, just scrape it off, start over. No worries. Okay, so we have our nose, our beard, and our robe done. I'm going to start with the tree. And again, please just gently lay this on. For the tree, you only need 2 coats. This glaze flows. It moves a lot when we put it in the kiln. So it will get darker in the crevices. It's a beautiful color. So all that texture you put on will show up. This is one of my favorite colors for trees because of the way it flows, and the way it goes into the crevices and gets so dark and rich. It's a beautiful color. You'll love it. I know it looks strange now. It looks black, but you're going to have to trust me on this one. Now again, for all these colors, I want you to do 2 coats. You probably don't want me to sit here and paint all these coats on for you. But you can see how I'm painting it on, I'm dabbing it, and it's just filling in. I want to make sure I get up under the bottom side of the leaves. Yes, they're not really leaves, they're branches. Get up underneath the branches. If you miss an area, it's going to be white, so it will really show on this green because the green was so dark, it will show. So make sure you get all those spots covered. You don't want a white spot showing up in the middle of your dark green. I'm going to turn them this way so you can see a little bit more. Be real careful when you go around the nose. You don't want this green on his nose either. Okay, that gives you an idea of how he's going to look with the paint. You can see some areas on the nose where it's looking a little chalkier, and that's drying. It should look like that. It's getting a little bit lighter. When it starts looking like that, you want to go ahead and do your next coat. So 2 coats. We'll start again with the nose and then work around just like we did the first time. Make sure your brush is nice and clean if you're using the same brush. You don't want green in with your white or your nose color. This time I can brush it on because it's a little, it's drying. I can just go ahead and brush it now. I'm still generous with my paint, but I'm brushing it on. And make sure you get 2 coats on everything. Once you have 2 coats on, make sure you let it dry. And when it's dry, it'll look chalky. Okay, so we let our piece dry for a little while. You can see it's getting chalky. So it changed color, dried a little bit. It's a little bit lighter. When it gets to this point, after a half hour to an hour, I want you to then take out that cone inside that we talked about. Okay, I want to pull that right out. You just pull it out. Sometimes you might have to twist it to pull it out, just like I did, and set it aside. Put your piece back on your plastic workspace. Go ahead and pull up the sides of your workspace. Take your piece and put it right in your bag. And there you go. You're all ready to bring it back. You do want to make sure you don't leave that cone in. If you leave that cone, it will crack your piece. Your piece will start drying around it and it will crack. So take the cone out, pull the sides up, and put it in your bag. We'll see you soon. Don't forget to order your kit to follow along right below.